So following the soul of Shraddhavan as it's led or driven away by death, Savitri has passed through the eternal night, a very terrifying experience, this journey in eternal night. But she was able, her soul was able to conquer that darkness. They emerged from it and have come out now into the dream twilight of the ideal. We're in a new book. We're in the book of the double twilight, and this is the first twilight, the twilight of the ideal. It's a very, very beautiful place. And it's beautiful in the way that ideals are beautiful, that they are so inspiring, and we catch glimpses of them and how they might be, but we can't really hold on to them and make them real here. But the charm, the attraction of the ideal is a very, very important thing in our spiritual development. So we're on page 605, line 219, and I'll read to the end of the canto. It's not very far. As if a music old yet ever new, moving suggestions on her heartstrings dwelt. Thoughts that no habitation found, yet clung with passionate repetition to her mind. Desires that hurt not, happy only to live, always the same and always unfulfilled, sang in the breast like a celestial lyre. Thus all could last, yet nothing ever be. In this beauty as of mind made visible, dressed in its rays of wonder, Shraddhavan before her seemed the center of its charm, head of her loveliness of longing dreams, and captain of the fancies of her soul. Even the dreadful majesty of death's face and its somber sadness could not darken nor slay the intangible lustres of those fleeting skies. The somber shadow, sullen, implacable, made beauty and laughter more imperative. Enhanced by his grey, joy grew more bright and dear. His dark contrast, edging ideal sight, deepened unuttered meanings to the heart. Pain grew a trembling undertone of bliss, and transience, immortality's floating hem, a moment's robe in which she looked more fair, its antithesis sharpening her divinity. a comrade of the ray and mist and flame, by a moon-bright face, a brilliant moment drawn. Almost she seemed a thought mid floating thoughts, seen hardly by a visionary mind amid the white inward musings of the soul. Half vanquished by the dream happiness around, a while she moved on an enchantment's soil, but still remained possessor of her soul. Above, her spirit in its mighty trance saw all, but lived for its transcendent task, immutable like a fixed, eternal star. Page 605. Line 219 is where we started. Dhanalakshmi, you begin.
As if a music old, yet ever new, moving suggestions on her heartstrings dwelt, thoughts that no habitation found, yet clung with passionate repetition to her mind. Desires that hurt not, happy only to live, always the same and always unfulfilled, sang in the breast like a celestial light.
Yes. The characteristic of this ideal world is that everything is fleeting and can't be seized firmly. And here, this is what Savitri feels within. There have been all these things that she could hear and see. This is what she feels within. She feels moving suggestions, touching the heartstrings that are like a beautiful musical instrument, and feelings, emotions, suggestions play on them. So these suggestions which carry emotion touch the heartstrings. It's like a music, an old familiar music that nevertheless is always new and fresh and unexpected. Thoughts come to her, thoughts that don't find a place to live, to stay, they don't find any habitation, and yet they keep coming back. They clung with passionate repetition, they keep coming back to the mind with these wonderful suggestions. And she feels desires that are not hurtful, they are not full of anguish or pain or longing or anything like that. They come, they stay the same, they are happy just to be like that, without fulfillment. They are singing there in her heart, on her breast. It's like a heavenly lyre. A lyre is a beautiful instrument with strings, which the old poets used to use to chant their poems to. But this is a heavenly lyre. Jana?
Thus, walk with lust with nothing within. With his beauty, of mind made visible, blessed in its grace of fondest of one with Shraddhavan, before caressing the center of its charm, could of her loveliness of wanton dreams, and cupping all the fancies of her soul.
Yes. So with this repetition, these impressions that come and pass and come back again, in this world, this dream twilight of the ideal, everything could last, it could continue, even though nothing ever really exists. Nothing becomes real, nothing becomes realized. And she's been following this luminous form of Satyavan, and behind death. So now when she sees in this world, she sees Satyavan, it's as if he's clothed in these beautiful rays of light of this morning twilight. Satyavan there seems to be the center of all the charm of that world. He's the leader of her dreams, head of her loveliness of longing dreams, and captain of the fancies of her soul. The captain is the one who is in charge, who gives the orders. So for her, he is the leader of all this beauty. Bhavan.
Even the dreadful majesty of death's face and its somber sadness could not darken nor blind the intangible luster of soul's fleeting strife.
So death is still there, dark, formidable, like a great king, the dreadful majesty of death's face. He hasn't changed. It's full of somber sadness. But even that can't spoil the charm of this world. It couldn't darken and it couldn't kill. Slay is to kill. Couldn't destroy the luster, the light, the intangible luster that can't be touched or grasped, the luster of those fleeting skies where everything is moving and changing and yet staying in a way the same. Sudha, would you read?
Yes. The somber shadow silence, impressible, made beauty and laughter more imperative. Enhanced by his grey joy, grew more bright and dear. His dark contrast, adding ideal sight, deepened and uttered meaning to the heart. Continue.
Continue, please, to the full stop.
So it grew a trembling undertone of bliss, a transcends immortality stroking him, a moment's robe in which she saw
She looked.
fair, its antithesis sharpening her destiny.
Divinity. Yeah. So that shadow, that terribly dark, sullen, bad-tempered shadow, this implacable shadow who can't be softened or satisfied, made all that beauty and laughter of that world more important, more imperative, more commanding and authoritative. Because that grey shadow is there, the joy becomes more precious, more bright, more dear. So there's this ideal light there in that world, and here's this black shadow, like an edge to it, a dark contrast, edging the ideal sight. Deepened, unuttered meanings to the heart. There are these moving suggestions which are coming. And because of the presence of that dark shadow, even here in this ideal world, it somehow gives these moving suggestions even deeper meanings. The possibility of pain is there, no? But it's experienced like an undertone of bliss, of delight. In music, we may have a melody, and there's some kind of reverberation or resonance of a deeper, darker note below. So it's something like that. The main feeling is one of bliss, but underneath there's this contrasting, deepening undertone of pain. Transience, impermanence is ruling in that world. But it seems as if it is a robe which immortality has put on. These things can last even though they can't ever be. Ideals can endure even if they don't get realized. No? So immortality, deathless state is like that. No? This transience, all these things coming and going and coming again. It's like a robe, a clothing which immortality puts on for a moment. And it makes her look more beautiful because of this transience. Immortality is made more valuable, more beautiful. Transience and immortality are opposites, antithesis. They can't really coexist, but this opposition sharpens, it makes more clear the divinity of immortality. So transience, immortality is floating hem. You know, the hem is the bottom of your garment. If you're wearing a very light garment and you move, it may float. That transience is like that, it's there floating, but what is wearing it is immortality. Would you like to read?
The contrast of the ray and distant flame, by a moon-bright face, a brilliant morning dawn. Almost she seems a talk mid floating thoughts, seen hardly by a visionary mind, amid the right inward musing of the soul.
Yes. So here she is Savitri. Savitri is a comrade in that world. She's a friend. She belongs there, a close friend of that beautiful shining ray and that mistiness and that flickering flame. You know? And she may be attracted for a moment by one or another face, beautiful face, moon-bright face, drawn for a moment. So Savitri almost herself seems like a thought, a passing thought, among other passing for thoughts that don't find a place to live. A thought that's just seen hardly with difficulty, not properly glimpsed for a moment by a visionary mind amid the white inward musings of the soul. If you're deep, concentrated within, you might see some such beautiful symbolic image coming for a moment and passing. So it seems maybe Savitri is herself like one of those fleeting images of that world. Chandra.
All men filled by the dream happiness around. Away she moved on an enchantment's joy, but she remained possessor of her soul.
Yes, half vanquished. Vanquished means conquered or overcome. She's half overcome by all that wonderful dream happiness of that beautiful world. So for a time, after all that terrible painfulness of the eternal night, she's moving on a magical soil, the soil of an enchantment, of something magical, a magic spell. But in spite of that, she still remains in command of her soul. She's possessed of her soul. She doesn't get carried away, swept away. She's not totally vanquished by all that dream happiness. Mila.
Above her spirit in its mighty trance, so all that live for its transcendent task, immutable, like a fixed eternal star.
Yes. In that world, everything is moving, changing, passing. But Savitri's spirit is above, fixed, like a star that doesn't move, an eternal star. And her spirit is observing, enjoying, participating in all that. But its purpose is to live for its transcendent task, for her mission. So she won't lose control of herself and get carried away in that world. She has something to do, her transcendent task.
So the mighty trance is Savitri's trance.
The trance of her soul, of her spirit, in a state of intense concentration there, controlling the movement of the being. This is Canto 2, the gospel of death and vanity of the ideal. Death is going to give her his message, what he believes, the gospel of death. And he's going to try and convince her that all this beauty of the ideal which she's seen and experienced is meaningless, in vain. Then pealed the calm, inexorable voice, abolishing hope, cancelling life's golden truths. Fatal its accents smote the trembling air. That lovely world swam thin and frail, most like some pearly, evanescent farewell gleam on the faint verge of dusk in moonless eves. Prisoner of nature, many-visioned spirit, thought's creature, in the ideal's realm enjoying thy unsubstantial immortality, the subtle, marvelous mind of man has feigned. This is the world from which thy yearnings came. When it would build eternity from the dust, man's thought paints images, illusion rounds, prophesying glories it shall never see. It labors delicately among its dreams. Behold this fleeing of light tasseled shapes, aerial arrayment of unbodied gods, a rapture of things that never can be born. Hope chants to hope, a bright immortal choir. Cloud satisfies cloud, phantom to longing phantom leans sweetly, sweetly is clasped or sweetly chased. This is the stuff from which the ideal is formed. Its builder is thought, its base the heart's desire, but nothing real answers to their call. The ideal dwells not in heaven, nor on the earth. A bright delirium of man's ardor of hope, drunk with the wine of its own fantasy. It is a brilliant shadow's dreamy trail. Thy vision's error builds the azure skies. Thy vision's error drew the rainbow's arch. Thy mortal longing made for thee a soul. This angel in thy body thou call'st love, who shapes his wings from thy emotions' hues, in a ferment of thy body has been born, and with the body that housed it, it must die. Tone, would you read?
Then pealed the calm, inexorable voice, abolishing hope, cancelling life's golden truth. Fatal, its accents smokes the trembling air.
Yes. So Aurobindo often uses this word pealed for the voice of death. It's like a great bell or the sound of thunder. This is the voice of death. It's calm, but it is inexorable. It is pitiless. Nothing can soften it or modify it. It's ruthless, inexorable. And the sound of that voice, the very sound of it, abolishes hope. It destroys hope. There's something in the sound of the voice that kills hope, that cancels out all those golden truths of life. Its accents, the sound of that voice is fatal. It brings death. And it smote. This is the past of the verb to smite, to give a big blow. That trembling air of that lovely ideal world. Praveen.
That lovely world swam thin and frail, most like some purely evanescent farewell gleam on the faint verge of dusk in moonless eve.
Yes. that lovely world. When he first introduced us to that world, Aurobindo said it is a morning twilight of the gods. We can have twilight in the morning or in the evening. And as they were emerging from that dreadful night, it was like a dawn gleam, the beginning of a new day. But with the sound of death's voice, he turns it into the last faint gleam of a dying day. Again the night is going to fall. It looks like some pearly farewell gleam. Very, very faint, beautiful light. When everything else fades away, can be a little faint pearly glow. That's evanescent, that lasts only a moment. That gleam is on the faint verge, on the horizon of dusk, in moonless eves, on evenings when there's no moon. It's going to become completely dark. So what does he say, Andres? Sorry. Evanescent. It means it's vanishing.
Prisoner of nature, many-visioned spirit, thus creature in the ideal's real enjoyment. Thy unsubstantial immortality, the subtle, marvelous mind of man has gained. This is the world from which thy yearnings came.
Yes. He's speaking to Savitri, and he's telling her that she's a prisoner of nature, that she can't escape whatever she may think. But he also calls her a many-visioned spirit. So within that prisoner of nature, that is a spirit, but a spirit who has many wonderful dreams and visions. But he says that this spirit is actually the creation of thought, of the mind. Here, that spirit, many-visioned spirit, is enjoying the ideal's realm. It's enjoying its sense of unsubstantial immortality, of immortality without any substance. He says that unsubstantial immortality is just a product of the subtle, marvelous mind of man. The mind of man has feigned, has produced this pretense, this unreal illusion of the spirit and immortality. He says, this is the world from which thy yearnings came. He's addressing Savitri. She is longing to bring Satyavan's soul back to earth. She's doing this in the name of ideal love. He says, this is where it's come from. It's so unsubstantial. Joel.
When it would build eternity from the dust, men thought, paints images, illusion rounds, prophesying glories it shall never see. It labors delicately among its dreams.
Yes. So, what man's thought would like to do sometimes is to build something really lasting, to build eternity out of this dust of the material world. But when man's mind wants to do that, it paints for itself images that get rounded out as if they had some kind of reality by illusion. Man's mind maybe prophesies all kinds of wonderful things, but it will never see those things realized. It's just playing about, labors delicately among its dreams. So, of course, he would pour scorn on all our dreams of a better world, a divine life here, even the dream of human unity, all these kind of ideals which inspire us. He says, you will never see them realized. They cannot be realized.
But it is partly true. What is happening now in the world, the same.
Yes, so this is one thing we will notice. I remember the last time we read this in the Sunday class, somebody pointed out, he said, what death says, that's what we think. That's what we believe. No? And that's why Aurobindo has put it like this, that we can see and look at what we really believe. No? Prophesying glories it shall never see. And then he says, look at this world, Sergei.
Behold this lake of light dazzled shapes, aerial raiment of unbodied gods, a rapture of things that never can be born. Whole chance to hold the bright immortal choir. Cloud satisfied cloud, phantom to longing phantom, lean sweetly is grasped, blessed all sweetly choose.
Yeah, so these are beautiful lines, no? He says, look, see this passing of these wonderful shapes which have like a fringe of light around them. A tassel is perhaps on the bottom of your shawl. Have you got tassels there? Yes, you have, yes. He says, these are the clothing of bodies of gods who don't have any bodies, unbodied gods. These light tasseled shapes are just coverings or clothings or expressions of these gods who don't have bodies. And here what you feel is a rapture, a delight, but of things that never can be born. They can never come into reality in the world. No? Here, there's an exchange, a hope, chance to another hope, all these hopes singing together. It's a bright, immortal choir of hope. No? Clouds are satisfied with mingling with or embracing other clouds. There are phantoms, ghosts, and they are attracted to each other. These phantoms, they lean sweetly to another phantom, longing, and they even may embrace each other or chase each other, but they are only phantoms, they are only ghosts, they have no reality. Would you read, please?
This is the stuff from which the ideal is formed. Its builder is thought, its base the heart's desire, but nothing real answers to their call.
Yes, so this is what he contends, that the ideal cannot be realized. No? This stuff here, which you're experiencing, this unsubstantial stuff, is what your ideals are formed from. They are built up by the thought, and they are based on wishful thinking, the desire of the heart. They don't correspond to anything real. Nothing real can answer to their call. Gumsun.
The ideal dwells not in heaven, nor on the earth. A bright delirium of man's odor of hope, drunk with the wine of its own fantasy.
Next line.
It is a brilliant shadow's dreamy trail.
Yes. So he says that there's no ideals in heaven. The ideal can't be realized on earth. It doesn't live anywhere. It's just a bright delirium. Delirium is when there's something wrong with your brain. If you have a high fever, you may have all kinds of visions or babble things. It's just a disorder of the brain. Here he says a bright delirium that's been born from the man's enthusiasm, his ardor of hope. And that enthusiasm gets drunk with the wine of its own fantasy. So then it's delirious. In fact, the ideal is just a dreamy trail of a brilliant shadow. It doesn't exist. Will you read?
Thy vision's error fills the azure skies. Thy vision's error drew the rainbow's arch. Thy mortal longing made for thee the soul.
Yes, let's see. He's saying three things and making them all the same. That when you see the sky as blue, it's just an illusion of your sight. No? If you go there, you will see it's actually colorless. It's only colorless air. It's an error of our vision that we see the sky as blue. Similarly with the rainbow, it's just an optical illusion. It's an error of your vision that has drawn this beautiful arch of the rainbow. In the same way, your mortal longing has fabricated for you the idea that you have a soul, or the feeling that you have a soul. It's not real.
He says the soul is not real.
Yes, yeah, it's an illusion. Ganga Lakshmi.
This angel in this body thou cast aloud. You shake his wings from the emotions used. In the ferment of the body has been born, and with the body that house it must die.
Yes, exactly. So you've got this marvelous, glorious feeling, this angel in your body, and you put the label love. Those glorious wings are born, have been shaped out of the colors of your own emotions. No? And he has been born, all these emotions and feelings and all the rest of it, from a ferment of the body. Fermentation is, well, we need it to make bread or to make beer. It's a very natural process, part of a decomposition process, actually, fermentation. So it's just something that's going on in your body, a chemical process. And that means that when the body dies, then naturally the love dies. There's no more process going on. This is his doctrine. Martin.
It is the love, and the body that house the it.
Yes, the body has been a house for the love. When the body dies, the love must die also.
It is love.
It is a passion of thy yearning self. It is flesh that calls to flesh to serve its lust. It is thy mind that seeks an answering mind, and dreams the while that it has found its mate. It is thy life that asks the human crop to uphold its weakness lonely in the world, or feeds its hunger on another's life.
Yes. So here he's saying that love is simply a function of the body. You feel it as a passion, but it's just something going on in the cells of your matter. It's the flesh, and it wants more flesh to serve its lust, its longing for pleasure. On another level, it's your mind. Your mind wants an answering mind, a sympathetic mind, and when it seems to find that, it dreams for a short time that it has found its mate. Or the life is asking for some support, a human prop, something to support it, to uphold its weakness, lonely in the world. We feel we need a companion, it's difficult to be alone. Or even worse, it feeds its hunger on another's life. It's drawing its energies from somebody else. That's what love is, according to him. I think we should stop there for today. So we can go back to the beginning and read from there.
As if a music old, yet ever new, moving suggestions on her heartstrings dwelt, thoughts that no habitation found, yet clung with passionate repetition to her mind, desires that hurt not, happy only to live, always the same and always unfulfilled, sang in the breast like a celestial lyre. Thus all could last, yet nothing ever be. In this beauty as of mind made visible, dressed in its rays of wonder, Shraddhavan before her seemed the centre of its charm, head of her loveliness of longing dreams, and captain of the fancies of her soul. Even the dreadful majesty of death's face and its sombre sadness could not darken nor slay the intangible lustre of those fleeting skies. The sombre shadow, sullen, implacable, made beauty and laughter more imperative. Enhanced by his grey, joy grew more bright and dear. His dark contrast, edging ideal sight, deepened unuttered meanings to the heart. Pain grew a trembling undertone of bliss, and transience immortality's floating hem, a moment's robe in which she looked more fair, its antithesis sharpening her divinity. A comrade of the ray and mist and flame, by a moon-bright face, a brilliant moment drawn, almost she seemed a thought mid floating thoughts, seen hardly by a visionary mind, amid the white inward musings of the soul. Half vanquished by the dream happiness around, awhile she moved on an enchantment's soil, but still remained possessor of her soul. Above, her spirit in its mighty trance saw all, but lived for its transcendent task, immutable like a fixed, eternal star. Then pealed the calm, inexorable voice, abolishing hope, cancelling life's golden truths. Fatal its accents smote the trembling air. That lovely world swam thin and frail, most like some pearly, evanescent farewell gleam on the faint verge of dusk in moonless eves. Prisoner of nature, many visioned spirit, thought's creature, in the ideal's realm enjoying thy unsubstantial immortality, the subtle, marvellous mind of man has feigned. This is the world from which thy yearnings came. When it would build eternity from the dust, man's thought paints images, illusion rounds, prophesying glories it shall never see. It labours delicately among its dreams. Behold this fleeing of light-tasselled shapes, aerial raiment of unbodied gods, a rapture of things that never can be born. Hope chants to hope, a bright immortal choir. Cloud satisfies cloud, phantom to longing phantom leans sweetly, sweetly is clasped or sweetly chased. This is the stuff from which the ideal is formed. Its builder is thought, its base the heart's desire, but nothing real answers to their call. The ideal dwells not in heaven, nor on the earth. A bright delirium of man's ardour of hope, drunk with the wine of its own fantasy. It is a brilliant shadow's dreamy trail. Thy vision's error builds the azure skies. Thy vision's error drew the rainbow's arch. Thy mortal longing made for thee a soul. This angel in thy body thou call'st love, who shapes his wings from thy emotions' hues, in a ferment of thy body has been born, and with the body that housed it, it must die. It is a passion of thy yearning cells. It is flesh that calls to flesh to serve its lust. It is thy mind that seeks an answering mind, and dreams a while that it has found its mate. It is thy life that asks a human prop to uphold its weakness lonely in the world, or feeds its hunger on another's life.